Hello, Leyla. Welcome here at SEMIC 2025. You're a senior data scientist at the Employee Insurance Agency in the Netherlands.
Yes.
So the UWV, if I'm correct?
Yes, that's
great.
Right. Yeah.
You've been working on various data-driven projects,
Yes.
working on deep learning, AI, LLMs, and semantic technology, graph technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe briefly introduce your role there and what excites you the most of working on those two types of technology, semantics and AI?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a senior data scientist. So at an average, I, of course, code and do a lot of algorithms. But we started a project a couple of years ago with Competent now, where we wanted to understand how the labor market is working. And actually within that, then came the idea of like, we have to do something with semantics, because there are two different organizations, they need to work together on a specific standards. And within that, actually, I try to do a lot of research, like what if you put actually extra semantics within a large language model? Is it true, or is it actually coming better answers and better data-driven solutions when it comes to for different policy questions that we have within the government?
And that's going to actually be the subject of your presentation?
Yes.
Today
So
at SEMIC?
yeah, true. So I'm a little bit more practical. So I will I have like a certain research question that I have, and actually I want to actually show the audience like we are combining two different worlds together, and how actually we take actually from a very technical perspective to a very easy, understandable way of how can you answer certain policy questions so that policy leaders actually know how the data is connected, and at the same time how to make policy on different topics.
Why do you think combining those two technologies, so the graph and the LLM, can be beneficial and relevant for public services in general?
I think that what we have in public services, or actually just government organization in general, is that we deal with a lot of history of data. Mm-hmm. We deal with very complexity of business rules that we have, and I think LLMs nowadays are maybe a good start to generate a certain answer on a certain question. But I think when it comes to understanding really the domain knowledge, semantics is actually an extra layer that you can use to make sure that in a graph perspective that it can give a better outcome, and especially when it comes to combining words together. I think that's an extra level that you can use within the technology, and I think graph analytics in general, of course not on every answer of not on every business question you can have the graph analytics in general, but I think in certain questions the way how you develop it definitely can really help.
Maybe related to the use case that you implemented for the UWV, what were the main challenges you faced when integrating semantic frameworks, graph technologies and AI in this project?
I think that one of the biggest challenges that we had is that within the project we have two different organizations. So UWV, Public Employee Services, is looking actually everything from a perspective from a job seeker and helping people back that make sure that every citizen in the Netherlands is working. And we're working together with an organization who looks from an educational perspective. So when it comes to semantics in general, how those two worlds are coming together, because you're talking about words. You need to combine two words that is actually overlaying the world of an occupation and job seekers and labor market, and on the other side also the education part. So it was very challenging for the first year and a half to come together and sit down and really talk about, can this word really overlay two different topics, yes or no? And that took a lot of time. But I think with combining the people from the business and people from like me as a data scientist coming together, try to find solutions and also understanding the bigger question, but because we did it to help the labor markets. I think that helped in a way to make sure that we have the semantics, but it was very challenging and it took a lot of time. That's one of the disadvantages, I think, just in general, if you want to use semantics, because you need to find a solution, and especially if you work from two different organizations.
Yeah. So in terms of recommendation, maybe if you would have to, someone wanted to apply something like that, but to another domain, what would you recommend?
I think that that you should not think as a solid of like, okay, this is my property and this is our property. No, you should think like why actually we're doing this. We're doing this for a bigger purpose, and actually coming together like to find a solution in a way to say like we need to somehow work together because we want to have an open standard. And I think if you think from a bigger perspective, and also that the people from the domain knowledge have also the overlay and understanding like, okay, we're not doing this for only our organization, we need to do it together, and we do something for, like in our case, for the Netherlands. I think that can help, and so it should be very clear for people, because at the end of the day, it's people from the domain knowledge who actually do the work, and it's not easy, but helping them understanding of we're doing that for a bigger purpose, not just it's you and me. No, we are coming together, and that takes time, and especially in public services, just in general.
Definitely, no, very insightful.
Yeah.
Maybe looking ahead, how do you see graph enhanced LLM shaping the future of public sector services?
I think that based on the bigger problem of large language models in general, especially when it comes to public employee services, is, like I said, the historic data that we have. We have a lot of complex business rules that based on law from a different country. And I think that you cannot just use a large language model or a multiple large language model to just combine that and integrate it in the system and have a chatbot, and you can assume that it will give you the right answer. That is something that's very difficult, especially when your domain knowledge becomes more and more difficult. And I think with semantics, because you have relationship between words, it means that the large language model will understand, okay, there is a relationship between them. So from a mathematical perspective, it can be that it will be giving better answers back. So I think that those two worlds are not actually separated, but they need to be integrated in a certain way. And I think me as a data scientist who is very good in transforming IT questions to algorithm and vice versa, I think that there are certain things that semantics can help, and there are also certain things that semantics cannot help. But I think it should be integrated together. If you want to use a large language model where you want to have a certain thing of being sure that the right questions be answered, then I think semantics definitely help. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Well, maybe one last point, and to close this interview, for today, for SEMIC 2025, if you had to share one key takeaway for policymakers around, okay, AI and semantics, what would it be?
I think that policy leaders should see semantics as an extra or a new area that they can discover. And I think it's very interesting to see from other countries what they're doing, try to share information, because we all struggling with sharing information between one another, and we want to combine that. So I think policy leaders really can come here and see insightful project or business cases, how other countries or organizations are doing that. And I think, again, that semantics can definitely help with the complexity of the data that we have within different governments. So I think it's very insightful to come and to see and to be inspired and take that with you back to organization and see how you can develop that.
This was very interesting. Thank you very much, Leyla.
Yes, thank you for having me.